Good afternoon, everyone. So we're talking about routing today. So I've set up just a basic skeleton for our Create React app application. And funny enough, this is the first time I've noticed that now I think Create React app is creating a functional component by default for us rather than a class-based component. So I guess that's part of the move of the React team wanting to push us into creating functional components, even when dealing with stateful components, because they introduced React hooks in the last release, or in release 16.8, which I think is the latest one, unless they've released one since then. So yeah, that's I guess where they want the future of React to go, is to be creating functional components. And we'll talk about state on Thursday and how we can use both state in class-based components and in functional components. But anyway, this workshop is on routing, so we're going to look at how we do that in React. What is React designed for building, or what was it initially designed for building? What type of applications? Does anyone know? Social. Say again, sorry? Social. So it was developed by Facebook, right? So yeah, that's a fair enough point. You could say it was developed for building social apps, but in particular,
trading apps.
I don't think it was for trading apps. So we covered earlier that it was a view library. Yeah, it was designed for developing the views, so the user interfaces. But also, it was designed for building single-page applications. Yeah, have you heard that term? Some yes, some no. Sort of, yeah. So essentially that just means your whole app is rendered on one page, right? And we briefly covered it before by saying that our app component is our main component, right? And that, if we go into the index.js, is actually getting rendered into the document and into the root div in our HTML web page. So our whole app is getting rendered inside of that root div, and we can easily see that root div if we go to the index.html, scroll down, and we can see it here, right? So if we actually inspected our web page, oh, I didn't want that full screen, but that's okay for now. And we go inside the body, and we can see that our whole application is inside of our div with the ID of root. Yeah, everything else is just additional scripts to get our necessary files loaded into the web page, but all of the code that we've written gets rendered inside of this div with an ID of root. So just one single HTML file is rendering our whole application. So React was originally designed for building single page applications. So what a lot of us are used to browsing the web is, this is the documentation, by the way, for ReactRouter. Are we streaming on YouTube, by the way, just to double check?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, fantastic. You might have to refresh if you're not seeing it, Anais.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, so I haven't updated the cover, probably, but if you click on it, then yeah, it should be the correct video. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully you can see it on your web page. It's a bit small on the screen, I realise. And what we're used to when we navigate around the web page is we're used to this URL at the top changing. Yeah, so I know it's very small, but now we're on React Router native. And if I click back to web, the URL at the top changes to React Router web rather than native, yeah? See that changing. So in this address bar, essentially that's our URL or our route that has been set up, and that renders certain content based on the web address, yeah, based on the route. By default in React, everything would just render through the same route. Yeah, the address bar wouldn't change. Of course, that's not that desirable for building certain types of applications, and especially as our application grows. So if we want to use routing in React, what solution, or what's one potential solution that is available to us that you've currently used in your apps? Yeah, so we need an extra dependency, right, for our application. And what dependency did we use? Can you remember the name of it? reactrouterdom or reactrouterdom? Yeah, I say router, other people say router, yeah. So how would we install that then? So we'd run npm install, and then reactrouterdom is the web version of reactrouter, and one of the dependencies of that is the reactrouter package itself. So if we install reactrouterdom, we should get both packages, reactrouter and reactrouterdom, the web version of it, yeah, or the web version of additional components. Then I'm going to do -- save. Does anyone know what that -- save actually does while we're on the topic? Yeah, exactly. It puts it in the dependency. So before I run that command, I'm going to just look inside of my package.json. And I'm in... Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. So we've got... Our dependencies are currently listed as React, React DOM, and React scripts. These are dependencies that get included when we run create React app. At the moment, there's no React router in there because I haven't installed it inside of this project. So let's look at the changes when I actually install reactrouterdom. Shouldn't take too long, I hope. Okay, so that has now installed, and can you see what's happened up here? Then we've now got an extra line in our package.json of reactrouterdom.
Does that mean if we need it for another project, we have to install it for that project?
Yeah, absolutely. So this has only installed it locally as a dependency for this current project. So if you were working on another project and you wanted to use routing, you would again have to run that command npm install reactrouterdom inside of that new project directory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you created a new React apps now.
Mm-hmm.
We call it create React app whatever.
Yep.
In the same local machine, you still have to.
Yes, the dependency is a local dependency, yeah. I haven't installed it globally, and it doesn't really make sense to install reactrouterdom globally because some apps might not need it, and it's not something I run from the command line. So generally we only install modules globally if we run them from the command line. Yeah? All right, so that's installed now. We should be ready to use it. How do we use it? How do we tell our application that we want to use router or a browser router, for example? Let's say I've got a few basic components already created. So if you wanted to maybe just skeleton out a portfolio page, for example, you might have an about component, a contact component, some projects and some skills, something like that. Yeah, so I've already created a few files. There's nothing inside them at the moment. We'll have to skeleton that out. But we have to import. Yeah, we definitely have to import something, right? If we've installed it in our project, if we want to use it, we have to import it. Where would we import it and how? In app.js. So what do we typically use as our router for the web?
It's called a BrowserRouter, but we set it as browser to make it easy to use.
Absolutely. So if we went to the web API documentation, you can see that the first thing that pops up is, oops, didn't mean to click on that, apologies, is this thing called BrowserRouter. Yeah, so you can clearly see, maybe if I zoomed in slightly, that it's a router that uses the HTML history API. So there's an API built into your browser that keeps track of what pages you've visited and allows you to use the back button and the forward button and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's a modern way of controlling your history and the pages that you visited. Yeah. And that's built into the browser, and reactrouter is able to connect to that and use that so that we can enable routing in our React application. So yeah, Richard was quite correct in saying that we don't just import it usually as BrowserRouter, because that's a bit of a mouthful. So what we could do instead is, if I can type correctly today, nope, definitely not. So we import BrowserRouter and we use an alias as router, because we're only going to have one router in our project. And that comes from reactrouterdom, right? And it's not a default dependency of reactrouterdom, so we have to wrap it inside of these curly braces, because reactrouterdom itself has many exports. Yeah, so BrowserRouter is just one of them. If you check the documentation, you can see what other things are available to you: BrowserRouter, HashRouter, link, navlink, all these things. Yeah, so all of those could be used as imports from reactrouterdom. We're just going to focus on the key ones today, which tend to be BrowserRouter, route, link, those sorts of things. Yeah. Okay, so now we've actually imported our router. How do we tell our application that we want to use routing in this application? Tell it which path? I don't even want to create any routes yet. Of course, we're going to do that in the future, but how do I just tell my application that I want to use a router in this application?
Wrap the div plus an app inside of AboutComponent.
Yeah, so we are going to need to wrap the whole of our app div inside of a router component. Something like that. Yeah? I'll just format that a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we haven't actually created any routes yet. We haven't actually even got much on our web page, right? But we haven't actually created any routes yet. So we can't navigate and move around our application, but at least we've set it up so that if we want to use routes, we now can. We've wrapped the whole of our application effectively in a router. The next step, I think Anais was talking about, she said we need to set up some routes, yeah? So that depending on what page we navigate to, then we show different content. Okay, how would I do that? We need a link, yeah. Okay, I mean, if I directly typed my URLs, then I could probably get away with just setting up some routes for now, and then we'll deal with the links later. But I agree, they all work together, right? Routes and links. But let's create the routes first, and then we'll create the links to navigate between them. Make sense? Yeah. So I think in your projects you've got something like mine's in routes, I think, separately, but you will probably have something like, can't even find it now. Yeah, you'll have those sorts of things. Yeah, you'll have different routes set up, routes set up. Yeah. So I would probably do that next. And where do they go? Let's go back to the correct page. Well, so where do they go in? Do they go outside of the router, inside of the router, inside of a div? Yeah, obviously inside of the router, right? Otherwise they're not going to be picked up by it. So let's put them inside of our app. I'll leave that there for now. We've definitely got an about component, and we've definitely got a skills component. So let's just start with those two for now, just to display something different on the page. So we're getting an error, of course, failed to compile, not defined, we haven't imported those yet. Let's actually give them some content first. So we've got the about page. So this is the about component. And we'll do the same for skills. This is the skills component, right? So now something should actually render. I don't know why I've got double divs. And back in our app.js, we can import those things. I'm probably going to put it there, doesn't really matter. Where's skills located? It's located here. So what is the route that I have to put in there? So what is the path? I should probably use path to avoid confusion. What's the path that I have to put in there? Backslash, like that. Say again? Skills.js. Okay. I didn't expect that to work. It might have actually worked. We'll see in a second. And something similar for about, yeah? No, so it's not liking that format, yeah? So it's // isn't it? Yeah? That's the path that it comes from. It's in the same folder as our app.js. Okay, cool. So now something's happening. This is our amazing app. Well, that's always rendered because it's just there. And then we've got, this is the about component and this is the skills component. Okay, so they're just rendering. Understood. How then do we make them display conditionally? So based on a certain route, how would we make that component display?
We put a route component and feed it the properties of path and the component that we want to put in.
Absolutely. I wish you were sitting a bit closer, Richard, so I didn't have to repeat that. But perfect answer. But in other words, we create a route component and we feed it an attribute of path. And that path we set to, well, whatever we want essentially at this stage. But if I wanted to render the about page, then it makes sense to use / about. Then when we go onto that route, what do we want to render? Well, we want to render a component. And the component that we want to render is going to be called about, right, with a capital. Something like that. Is that correct? Route is not defined at the moment. Okay. So we've imported BrowserRouter as router from reactrouterdom. But we also, now we're using route as well. So let's just put a comma and add route in there. Okay, cool. So now our app page is still working. It's still compiling. It's displaying this is our amazing app, but it is not displaying our skills component. Not displaying our about component. That's because it will only display that when we're on the about route. Yeah? So if I typed /about in my web address bar, oh, hang on, what's happened?
The component is a string. I think you can put
Ah, good. So the component is an actual variable rather than a string. Component equals about. Oh, I've still got the string thing there. Yep. Okay. So if we went back to the root of our application, then we can see that this is our amazing app and skills are rendered. And if we go to /about, we can see that all three are rendered again. So it's not quite the behavior that we want, but something's happening, yeah? We're differentiating the about component. How would we make it so that only the about component renders on, I'm just trying to think of the easiest way to do this. Maybe I should create a home component. Would that make it easier? Yeah, let's copy all of that, create a home component. So this is our home page, right? What the user first sees when they go on our website. This is, let's have that text. This is our amazing app, yeah? And let's call that home. And we'll export it, of course, as we saw how to do last week. All right, back in our app.js then. For the root of our application, this time I just want to display this is our amazing app. How would I do that? I've now taken that logic and put it into a home component. Can we create another route? Yeah, let's create another route, but just for my home page path. What is my home page path going to be? Say again, Ananas, what's it going to be? Slash. Anything else? Space? What did it say? Oh, slash skills. So I just want the home page when they initially go on our app. What is the route going to be? Just slash on its own, exactly. Yep. Can't resolve home.js because I called it home page, right? Do we need the .js as Nilofer suggested? Will it work if I just put /homepage? Yeah, it works, right? So the .js is unneeded, but if you want to put it, that's absolutely fine. Just try and be consistent, right? So if you want to type this, leave off the .js, as long as it's a JS file. Okay, so now we wanted to display only the home page. So at the moment we're just rendering skills, so let's change that to a similar format, give it its own route. And this time we'll call it skills, and of course skills there. And we haven't imported skills either, right? Oh yes, we have. Docs. Route path equals skills, component equals skills. Where have I made a mistake? Oh, I haven't closed my route. Is that it? Yeah, okay. So our home page appears to be working. When we go to the root of our application, we display home only. These other components, about and skills, are not currently displaying. What's going to happen when I go onto /about. What's going to get displayed? Is the about component going to get displayed? Yeah, okay. Is the skills component going to get displayed? No, okay, that's a no. But what about the home component? Is that going to get displayed? The home component. So the path for that is just the /, and the path for the about component is /about. Not sure? They're all imported at the top. We've got import skills, import about, import home. So they should all get rendered through our app. Oh, if I go to /about, it seems that this is our amazing app is getting rendered, and this is the about component is also getting rendered. It's not really what we wanted. How do I fix it so that just the about component is displaying? So there's a little keyword that we can use inside of the route component, and it's called exact. So in other words, this route will only display if the path is exactly equal to just a /. And of course, without a / is just the same as having a /, right? In this case. So now on the home path, then we just get this is our amazing app. But when we go to about, we just get the about component displaying. Yeah, so that's correct. That's the behavior that we wanted. And if we go to skills, then we just get the skills component. Okay? Has anyone come across switch? Yeah. So I think Richard might have got to a task that uses switch. Do you know what it does and what is the difference between using a switch and using a normal route? If I take away the exact again, we see that we've got two components being rendered. Yeah? And why did we get two components being rendered? That's an important question. So we got two components being rendered because even though we're on /about or /skills, then /about still contains this character. It still contains a /. So that route is actually getting matched. Yeah? Does the route contain a /? Yeah, of course it does. We'll render this component. Does it contain /about? Yeah, it does. We'll render that component as well. So we've actually rendered two components. It's not what we wanted. We saw one way to combat that. Sometimes using switch can be useful. And we'll see a case later on, hopefully if we get time, where switch can be useful. And we can just wrap our routes inside of a switch. When we do that, and as long as we import it up the top, then just one component is being matched. It's not actually the correct one in this case, but just one component is being matched. So that is because switch will only ever render the first matching component. Yes, so no matter how many different components we put in here, switch will only render one, the first matching one. And in our case, because we haven't used exact, then of course the first matching one is going to be just a normal /. And of course, if we now put the exact back, we get the correct component rendering. Some of you have begun using dynamic paths as well. Yeah? So you had your 6 movie images, and you wanted to render a details component no matter what image was clicked on. Yeah? So can you remember the syntax to say that something is a dynamic path? By the way, before we move on, is everyone clear with what we've done so far, or do you want to ask a few questions? Okay, good. How do we make things a dynamic path? Let's say that no matter what I type after the /, I always want to render the about component. It's not a great example, but for the purpose of this, it will work, yeah? What syntax did we use to make something dynamic? Yeah, the colon, right? And that could be anything, right? So no matter what we type in there now, whether it's about or a load of gibberish, then the about component still renders. How about if we actually want to return skills? Because even if I type skills in now, what's it going to return? Is it going to return skills or about? Yes, look, I type in skills. Oh, this is the about component. Nah, I want the skills component, please. How would I make it do that? So the order that we put our routes in is also important. Because remember I said when using switch, it matches the first matching route. So even though we type skills, it's actually matched this dynamic route here. Because as long as we type / and then absolutely anything, this is the route that gets matched. So therefore it never even reaches the skills component. If instead we swap the order, so that we put the skills component above the dynamic route, then of course it matches the correct one. It matches the skills component. And then now if I typed skills, I get skills. And if I type anything else, the about component renders. Okay, so usually your dynamic links will go at the end of the similar formatted link above. Yeah? If I wanted to have a route that was /skills/JavaScript, for example, so /JS, how would I make it specific? Or that's getting a bit complicated. So yeah, how would I make it specific to JavaScript and just render a JavaScript page or JavaScript component? So I want a route of skills/JavaScript, yeah? How would I do that?
You keep on doing the same stuff, so underneath skills you route path and forward slash skills forward slash JS.
Yeah, so you might not have seen, do you call them nested routes? I guess you call them nested routes, right, so far in the application that you're using, but there's no reason why you can't have slash skills slash JS slash ES6 slash reduce, you know, something like that. There's no reason why you can't have very, very specific routes like that. Let's just go 2 levels deep for now so that we don't get really complicated. And then let's have an actual separate component, right? I'll just call it JS for now. So I need to obviously create that component. JS.js, it's quite confusing. Yeah, then let's do something similar again. And this is the JS component, all right? So you can fix my warnings this time. So this warning says failed to compile. JS is not defined inside of source app.js. So what do I need to do? Go to app.js and do what, Nelofa? Import it, yeah. So again, import JS from JS. Zoom out slightly again. Oh, hang on though. I'm still getting just the skills component displayed. Yeah, good. So we covered it earlier. This time we need the exact. Where do I need the exact?
On the skills one.
On the skills one. Yeah, so if I put it not on the skills one, oops, now if I spell it correctly, then nothing changes. So I need it on skills exactly. And then it will jump to the next one because slash skills slash JS is not an exact match of slash skills. Yeah, so it keeps going down the list. Oh, is that an exact match? Yes, it is. Or is it just a normal match? Yes, it is. Okay, so you don't actually need the exact on the skills slash JS one, but it does contain all of that text. So it does render that route. Okay, I'm not going to get any more complicated with routes for now. I think that's covered most of the main things. We've looked at how to use switch, what it does. It only renders a single component. We've looked at route. What's the general syntax for that? Well, we create a path, give it the name that we want to match in the URL. If we need to match that exactly, we can use this exact keyword. And we also tell it what component we want to render based on the route that has been either typed in, or usually in an application we have links, right, between these components. So let's quickly create some links, and I want to create them outside, well, I want them to render on every single page. Yeah, whether I'm on skills or about or home, I want my links to always be visible, similar to a menu bar, right? Something like that, but a very, very simplified menu bar. How would I do that? Another new component, do we? We could do, but can we actually just write them directly inside of app.js? Yeah, is it okay just to do that just for this example? Yeah. So what, or maybe you're getting at something else. So what component did you want to create? The loafer. No, not sure. Okay, sorry, I might have confused you. So have we used link before? The link component, yes. That also comes bundled as part of reactrouterdom. Yeah, and we're used to links looking like that, right? Anchor tags in HTML. Of course, there's nothing inside of it. Yeah, we're used to links looking something like that, and they need a href, and then they go somewhere, right? Instead, lovely, it's now formatted it for me so I can tell it it's a link. Instead, when we're using routing in React, it makes sense to use the built-in link component in reactrouterdom so that we retain all the benefits of the React ecosystem, yeah, such as the shadow DOM and the dynamic re-rendering and all stuff like that. So therefore, we can use this extra component again called link. So let's stick that at the end here. And that takes the place of any anchor tag that we might want to use. So we can have a link. What attributes does a link component have? 2. What are they? What are they called? Oh, 2. Oh, so, yeah, I thought you said the number 2. Yeah. So where are we linking to? So this is the equivalent of the href. Thank you. So yeah, let's say we want to create a link for home. Where do we link to? So just a / like that? Yeah. And then we can create a few other links as well. What have we got? We've got skills, about, home, and JS, right? So I could do the same for those. Skills, about, JS. And of course we need to change these routes and make sure they match exactly with our path that we specified down here. So skills looks like that, about looks like that, and JS looks like skills/JS. Yeah, something like that. Okay, what's the problem at the moment? Why am I only displaying home? I thought I've created 4 links here. What's going on? Yeah, good spot, good spot. It's inside the switch. And what did we say switch does? Renders the first component only. And link is a component, right, in the way that we're using it. So where do I need to move my links to? Yeah, just above it, outside of the switch, yeah? Still gets rendered within our app. So if we now do that, I mean, it's horrible formatting, but we should now be able to see that we've got 4 links up here, right? Home, skills, about, JS. Let's give these a class name just to do a little tiny bit of formatting so it's readable. And let's call it link, right? Why not? I should have probably changed those all at once. Let's see if I can always forget this command. I'm going to memorize it by the end of the boot camp. Okay, so I've given them all a class now of link. And could someone suggest maybe a little change that we can make to our CSS to make them a bit more readable, so they're not all just blocked together, they're not all in line together? We could add a line break. I don't really like using line break components, to be honest. So, you know, you've learned some modern CSS formatting and methods now. Can we use something else instead? Is that all right? So firstly, what selector do I need to use? Yeah, we probably could have used the link tag, but yeah, all right, I'm just going to do it like this for now as I've created a separate class name. Padding, yeah. I mean, there's many ways, right, to make it more readable. What padding do you want to give it? I don't know why I've done it like that, sorry.
15 pixels.
15 pixels. See what that does. Yeah, okay, so that works, right? Now we can see there's clearly 4 separate links here rather than one link saying home skills about.js. Okay, back to our app.js then. So, on skills.js, we have the JS component rendered and home skills about.js. If I go back to my home, that's my home page, and I've still got all 4 links rendered. Obviously, I'm just hard typing it at the moment. Hard coding it. I'm just typing it at the moment. So do my links actually work? Let's have a look, shall we? Skills goes to skills, about goes to about, JS, home. Yeah, looks good, right? So no matter what page we navigate to, our links are always displayed because they're sitting outside of our conditional render, yeah, outside of our switch and outside of our routes. So there's nothing conditional about the links. They are always displayed. However, once we get inside of our switch and we have some specific routes, then these components are conditionally rendered based on the address up here in the address bar. Does that make sense? Yeah? Any questions or things I forgot to cover? Things that you covered in your CodeFlix app that I haven't clarified? Any questions at all? No? Does that mean I've covered it well, or I've just blown your minds with too many terms at once? So you'll get plenty of practice at routing if you're all thinking, oh, hang on, when do I use route? When do I use link? When do I use all that sort of stuff? Yeah. Most apps that we build will need routing of some sort, right? So just try and go through the steps. I like to install the dependencies first, of course, reactrouterdom. Then set up my routes. And then afterwards that I've checked that those routes work by actually typing things up the top. After that, let's put in some links so that I can actually navigate between these just from the user interface rather than having to type them. Yeah, but I usually leave the links till last. That works for me. You might have a different approach. All good, Abdul? Yeah? Because I know you were working on this yesterday and things are a bit clearer now? Yeah? All right. I'll leave it there then, if that's okay. So that has streamed to YouTube. Wonderful. So therefore you can rewatch it again if you need. Thanks very much.